On today's Question of Faith, what were 900 people doing at Akron's Minor League Ballpark? Hey everybody, this is Question of Faith. I am Deacon Mike Hayes. I am the Young Adult Ministry Director here in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damian Ferentz, the Vicar for Evangelization.
900 people out in Akron last night.
It was great.
It was a rave. No, it wasn't a rave. Well, sort of a rave, right?
If you remember last year, we did these ballpark masses, and unfortunately, for 3 of the 4, it rained, and we had to move into a church. The only one that survived the weather last year was the one in Ashland County, which was great. And it was a beautiful, I think it was in August or September
It was
evening.
August, because we did the finals of the softball league there.
Yeah, Bishop Grease had the Mass. It was wonderful.
Great, yeah.
So we decided this year only to do one Mass and to go down to Canal Park where the Rubber Ducks play, minor league baseball.
Quack, quack.
And we also decided, because yesterday was the Nativity of St. John the Baptist, which is a very important feast for the Puerto Rican community in particular, that the Mass ought to be bilingual. So we advertised. We had billboards out down in Akron, digital billboards. We were out on social media. Yep. Bishop Malesic came down, celebrated the Mass. Father Rafael Capot, who is a priest of the Archdiocese of Miami, flew in. He preached the Mass. And not only was there a Mass, but then since it is Eucharistic Revival, we had a Eucharistic procession up the hill and into St. Bernard Church, where Father Chris Aruca, pastor, warmly welcomed us. And we had a little exalt there, Eucharistic praise and adoration and benediction, and the church was absolutely packed.
That's the first time I was in St. Bernard's, too.
What do you think?
I love that place. Yeah, it was really nice. I'm
gorgeous.
not. I think you know this, but I'm not one for big, huge churches. I don't like ugly. Let's just be clear here. I don't like ugly, but I like small and intimate over large and grand. Let's put it that way. But that one I really like.
One of the reasons St. Bernard's is so beautiful and different is because although it is big, because there are no pillars obstructing any views, it makes you feel connected and warm. Yeah. It's similar to St. Wendelin in that regard.
Right.
Now, Wendelin is small, but it's wide, and there are no pillars obstructing any views, as you would find in a Gothic church, like St. Stan's or St. Michael's or St. James, James is more Romanesque, I suppose. But Bernard's is different. In fact, there was a time, if you do your history of the Diocese of Cleveland, that some thought Akron would become its own diocese.
Right.
And Bernard was built to be the cathedral if Akron ever became its own diocese. So it has not and will not, but it has one of the most beautiful churches in the whole city. And it was recently restored both inside and outside, the roof, tuck pointing, the lighting, and it's clean and it's beautiful. And I had a bunch of the kids from Tole Lege that came in there, and jaws dropped, you know.
Yeah, I walked in there before. Actually, I parked there and then walked down to the ballpark from there. And so I walked in for the first time. I was like, oh, this is what FD meant about this place. This is really nice. And when you said the lighting, that really stayed with me, too, because I was like, wow, because a lot of times and maybe the pillars are a function of this, right, is they tend to be a little too dark for me. Like, it just makes me feel uncomfortable sometimes when it's really, really dark. Not in the candlelit way.
Right.
I mean, just like in the regular, ordinary
I
kind of Mass.
See,
it's it feels dreary to me, I guess, sometimes. And St. Bernard's doesn't feel that way. It didn't feel that way in the day or the night to me. It felt like it was really well lit, and I really, we could see everything. I had to read the Gospel at adoration, and I could see very clearly, and everything else. It was nice. It was a nice night.
And it was packed, and everyone who was there wanted to be there, and they were singing so loudly when we came in and did the Salutaris. And this is the other thing, too. We just had a meeting, and Nancy Fishburne, who's the Executive Director of Communications for the Diocese, was asking me for a quote, and I said, I haven't figured out exactly how to say this yet, and I want it to sound right, but sometimes when we when we have a bilingual Mass or a trilingual or a multilingual Mass, it can feel forced.
Sure.
Last night did not feel that way at all. And I credit that to Andy, the musician, who led the songs. And each song, he did it in English and Spanish, and the verses were the same, but it felt very organic and natural. Father Capot's homily,
yes,
he didn't say one thing and then the exact same thing like one thing in English and the exact same thing in Spanish. He held the form and he was telling a story and he was preaching, but he naturally went back and forth between English and Spanish. So it didn't feel like one was a token language or we were forcing one. Everything felt so natural. And even if you didn't know a lot of Spanish, it was easy enough to sing. And I imagine if you didn't know a lot of English, it was also easy enough to sing. And I think everyone felt like they were at home. This was their place. And everybody felt connected. Even some of the teens after were saying, "I really liked the two languages. That was cool." So I thought that was excellent. So credit to Lynette Sines for helping organize that, and Hortensia, who was on the show last week, and all the hard work, and our whole Eucharistic Revival team. It was wonderful.
Yeah, Deacon Jeff for being the MC and getting everybody organized. It was great. Yeah.
Yes, and at the beginning of well, you too, Deacon Mike.
No, thanks. I was just deacon of the altar, but yeah.
But it's important when you are in a space, especially that is a space that is not a church, to let people know what is expected and what to do, not in an authoritative way, but in a helpful way, because people want to know, I'm in a ballpark, where do we do for communion? So the deacon's job is to give the instruction. You're the one who says, like, what do you say? Let us offer each other a sign of peace. Go and announce the gospel of the Lord. So the deacon's job is to give instruction during liturgy. So that was just and right that you and Deacon Jeff were the ones who were telling people what to do and where to go and who to follow. And people like to know what to do at liturgy so they're not lost.
Explain much, assume little.
That's great.
It's like we had to tell people where to go for communion. So, hey, stay in your seats until someone tells you to move. Is basically what I said in so many words. Look for the women in the teal shirts. They'll tell you where to go. And
if you haven't seen pictures, we're not permitted to use the lawn of the or the infield or the outfield of the ballpark, because once in a while there'll be a concert down at Progressive Field or Cleveland Browns Stadium. But when there is, they bring in all these little plastic platforms to protect the lawn. We couldn't do that. So we set up our sanctuary on top of a dugout.
Right.
And then all the theaters, like the amphitheater seating, surrounded that. But even to get up on the dugout, we needed a couple stools to take the steps, and there were some high steps. You had to stretch a get to get up there.
I'm really glad I've been working out.
Yeah, it helps. It helps.
And going up wasn't so difficult. Like you got to take a big step up, but you just lean on your leg and pull yourself up. Not a big deal. Going down was a big drop initially when we first started looking at it, and I was like, ooh, I had to like reach out for Lynette to have her help me down the first time. I was like, yeah, that's a big drop, and if I can't do it, what's someone older than me gonna do?
Right.
And then I said, well, let me go back up again. Let me try to come down again by myself. And so I did, and I did fine. So I said, okay, I think it was just the initial. I need to get used to how far down this is, and then they got like a little bit of a larger step, I think, for later on. But I'm always so afraid of falling in those kinds of things.
Oh yeah, especially if you're in your vestments.
Yeah, right. That was
people
the
have
other
their
thing.
cameras out, and then the next thing you know, you become a meme or a GIF. Yeah.
Down goes the deacon.
Yeah. So another thing that was really great about last night was that it was a public witness, and as the bishop said at the beginning of Mass, yes, we should be celebrating Mass in the churches, and that's what churches are built for.
Sure, of course.
However, getting the faith out in the streets and ballparks, I mean, that music carried throughout the city. And one of the really cool things a couple people noticed as Father was preaching, especially at the end of his homily, he was talking about that young man who was dying. Just behind the ballpark, actually in the left field line, is Akron Children's Hospital.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So some of those young people in their hospital rooms would have seen and heard the music that was being played in the Mass, and then the Eucharistic procession at the end. And that was wonderful too. It wasn't a long walk. It was only about 2 city blocks. But the Akron police, God bless them, were so kind. They blocked off the streets so that we could process in peace. And it was Father Jim Winings, who's over at St. Raphael. He started just doing the litany out of the back of the bulletin, and then Father Francisco did it in Spanish, and then we're like, what should we sing? So we did Lord, I Need You, and then we sang Jesus, Remember Me, and by the time we got up into the church, Andy and his choir were already singing, and we just entered in and kept entering in and kept entering in, and I had told Lynette earlier, because she said, where should we put the priest? And I'm a priest, and I love being a priest, and I love the Eucharist, but I thought, let's put the priests to the side. They'll still be in front, but I wanted that front portion for teenagers. I wanted them to be close.
Yeah, they were.
And they were so excited because a lot of them were totally lay kids who I've been with for this week. And they're like, oh, my gosh, Father, that was great. And there were 4 boys, young men, who actually carried the canopy. And they were the last ones into the church. And they're like, there's no space for us. I'm like, no, in the front row, go up along the left. And sure enough, they wound up being in the front row with you and Father Capot and Bishop. And they commented last night, like, I felt like I was in heaven. The singing was so great, and I was so close, and I didn't expect to get close. So it was really a special moment, I think, for everybody, particularly the Hispanic community. But as Sister Jane likes to say about the Black Catholic community, we're all one community. We're a Catholic community. Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Slovak, you're Irish. We have our own nationalities and cultures. But at the end of the day, we're not doing events to separate us, but to unite us.
That's right. It's great that we get to share each other's culture as one body in Christ. Right?
Yeah.
You know, some days it's Slovak, some days it's Irish, some days it's Black, some days it's Hispanic, right?
Asian,
Asian, whatever. Yeah. It's so like, you know, I think I learned a lot at Sagrada Familia last year. You know, I was there for a year for Field Ed, and they were just so accepting of me. Mm-hmm. You know, I came in saying, how am I going to learn Spanish? How am I going to do this? And they're like, no, you're good. Mm-hmm. Like, you're one of us. It's fine, you know? And I was like, okay. You know, it felt like home. I just did my Mass at Thanksgiving there on Sunday. It felt like going home.
It's great.
It was just so much fun.
Well, even last week, talking about these outdoor masses, we had the Juneteenth Mass, and you were on for that, too, over at Glenview Park. And it was hot, but it was wonderful.
It was great.
And everybody was invited. It was sponsored by Black Catholic Ministries, certainly, and Sister Jane did a wonderful job. There's actually a great article in Signal.com we should put up there. Yeah, it was Jim Armstrong threw it out with his daily headlines last week. But yeah, it was great. So those things are really important, to gather together as a church publicly, celebrate the faith, let people know what we're about. And I had a meeting with the bishop this morning. One of the things he commented on was that half the crowd last night, half the assembly, half the congregation were young people.
Yeah.
And they like doing those sorts of things, getting out, walking, professing, singing. So I thought it was very moving.
We've learned a lot in a couple of years. You know, mm-hmm. we started out by saying, let's just do this procession and see what happens.
Yeah.
And they did on the week before Palm Sunday, right? And we just went out, and 75 people showed up, and we're like, "Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, okay, let's keep on doing this, you know." And so we just thought, well, what are other things that we could do outside, you know?
And I will freely admit, I am more of a privatized faith guy in terms of procession, probably because I didn't grow up with processions.
Yeah, okay.
Like outdoor masses were something that I was familiar with, so I've always been. But the processions have grown on me. It was not part of my upbringing to do Eucharistic processions or Marian processions or any of these things. But I do like walking, and I do love my faith, and I see why these things work, and they have been effective. And it's really cool to be part of a group like that. So I do like it. I like the processing from church to church. I do like that.
I like that too, yeah.
As a kid, what we would do around Epiphany, we'd go to different homes, like what do they call it, a layered meal or a progressive meal. And so it would be a house blessing, and we'd go from house to house. So I did a little bit of that as a youngster. I don't think I've ever used the word youngster before. But some of these like Eucharistic processions are new to me, and I like them.
Yeah, they're somewhat new to me too. I mean, when I was a kid, I went to Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Yonkers, and Italian church.
Yeah.
So we were the Irish people in the Italian church, which was cool, and I like being different, right? And on the feast day, they'd carry the statue of Mary, of Our Lady of Mount Carmel around the neighborhood. And so it was a long walk, actually. Yeah. And they would have all of the altar servers. The altar servers were a big group in our parish. They called us the Knights of the Altar Society. And we were more than it was like a little youth ministry, really. We'd have recreation on Saturday. We'd do a trip to Great Adventure in New Jersey every year. We'd have a full day at the school all the time, like a lock-in kind of thing. And but we were all required to be in the procession. And so we all came and joined in the procession. And every once in a while, like, we'd pass by some of our friends who maybe we're not even Catholic, but they certainly weren't at altar service. And they'd yell something out that's like, "Hey, look at Donatone over there," you know. And Donatone was a hot-headed kid, right? And all of a sudden he turns to go at this guy, and I grabbed him by the hood and said, "No, you can't do that here." He was like, "Oh yeah, right." Funny. So it's like, yeah, processions are cool though. I kind of dig them.
Well, and speaking of processions, Eucharistic Revival, BallPark masses, you texted me. It was either Friday or Saturday night. It's probably around 11, and you informed me that the Diocese of Cleveland won an award, first place, for our Eucharistic Revival video, the many language one. So if you're not familiar with it, our Eucharistic Revival team, Mike did a big part of this thing, composed a Eucharistic Revival prayer, and it's been translated into 17 languages. We made a video last year highlighting 7 of those languages. And that video just won first place Gabriel Award, which is pretty great. And I guess we won first place for one of our pro-life videos too.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So 2 of those.
So congrats to Kay Colby, who one of our video folks.
Excellent work.
All her production work. And I was just talking to her a second ago, and she was really excited about it, so that's great. And then cool. Somebody else won a book award.
Yeah, so
some guy named Ferenc.
I did not know that my book was up for any award, and then you sent me that.
Those sneaky words on fire, folks.
It was, I got an honorable mention, which I will take. That's nice.
Award.
Someone mentioned my book.
Think of all the books that are out there, and that yours is an honorable mention book. Yeah.
So I tweeted that I won this Gabriel Award because you said those other 2 were Gabriel Awards, and then you're like, you won one too. So I put it out there, and then a friend of mine from Notre Dame, he tweeted, he's like, "No, you didn't win a Gabriel Award. You
Catholic
won
Media Award."
Catholic. Well, how did I know? Yeah. Because you told me. So anyway, I clarified that. But the nice thing is, and actually Brandon Vaught just emailed me too, and I'm sure the other authors from Word on Fire. The nice thing is, if you win an award, even if it's an honorable mention, you are now an award-winning author, and you have an award-winning book. So that happened with my first one too, but it's kind of funny how that works out. So I'm humbled by it. I think it's cool. But yeah. In fact, speaking of that book, today, Culture and Evangelization just released an interview I did with Dr. Todd Warner about Hillbilly Thomas. So if you're interested, maybe we could put that in the show notes?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, send it to me, and I'll put it in.
Okay.
And then you were on Pints of Aquinas the other day, too.
Yeah,
right?
with Matt Fradd. In fact, I recorded both of those interviews back in late May.
Oh, wow.
And they were just released recently. So it's what's nice. The timing is so perfect and providential because of that Wildcat film.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And because Ethan Hawke made this film and his daughter stars as Flannery O'Connor, people are interested in Flannery O'Connor, and they're looking for an expert on her. And I happen to be one since I wrote this book. And it's a lot of fun. In fact, I think the film's still at Cedar Lee, if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
The executive producer was in a couple of weeks ago, and we did a Q&A afterwards in the theater, which was neat. And Hollywood Reporter just released an article with the top 10 films of 2024 so far that should be up for awards, and Wildcat's one of them.
Nice.
So, yeah, you'd like the film.
I'm sure I would.
You should check it out.
Yeah, I gotta go. I've just been busy, but I gotta go see this.
Yeah,
there's a couple things I have to go see.
And the nice thing about the Cedar Lee is it's one of the few theaters in the city where you can drink beer while you watch. I know you're not a huge beer drinker, but
I'm not. But yeah, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I'm dieting this. I still won't. I still won't drink beer, but that's fine. Well, maybe one. We'll see.
Okay.
Old habits are hard to break,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's cool. And yeah, you were a good listener. You were my listening buddy down on with Pints of Aquinas. I listened to it on my way down to Akron yesterday, so that was fun.
Yeah, I've been told don't read the comments.
Well, yeah, that's always the case, though.
Which is fine. But the thing is, when Matt and I had a few disagreements, they were not over dogma or doctrine. They were over prudential judgments.
Yeah, that's
and
right. Yeah.
That's how things go, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the interview. Although I haven't watched it yet. I was there. I did it, so I know what I said.
I thought it was an interesting conversation. Like, I'm listening to it. I'm like, okay, talking about, how far is too far with movies. Like, can we watch a movie that has, maybe some scenes in it that are not exactly, copacetic. So,
Right.
And I was like, well, that's interesting. I liked your take on it too. I was like, well, wait a minute, there's some redeeming value in this film, And he was like, no, you can't watch any of it. And I was maybe you can't watch any of it.
And if you,
which you pointed out too.
If you follow the interview all the way through, at the end, the topic comes back up. And I mentioned that back in the day, the church actually did have a list. They called it the index of films you shouldn't see and books you shouldn't read. Flannery O'Connor would receive permission from her pastor through the bishop to read certain books because she was an intellectual and she had to know the culture and what her peers were listening to and watching, reading. And so she had permission to do that. So I am certainly not saying that you should watch every rated R film and that these are good. But what I am saying is someone needs to. And as the vicar for evangelization, I need to know what people are listening to. I need to know what people are watching because I need to engage people who are involved in the culture. And sometimes that's my traction into a life of someone who doesn't believe in God or hates the church. So anyway, we could do a whole nother podcast on that sometime.
Exactly.
But
we should. Yeah, that's fun. But fun interview with Matt Fradd. So we'll put that in the show notes. All right. We got washed out of a couple games this week. So we were out in Parma. We got 2 games in, and then the other 3 got all washed out. So we got to do some makeup games. So that's fine. We'll figure that out.
Will you do it on a Sunday or find another day?
No, we'll probably find another day. I'm thinking maybe we don't do a game on the weekend of the fest on Sunday.
Yep.
So I think maybe the Saturday before we could probably get those games in. So we're going to try that, I think. We're going to look to see who's available and what field is available and everything else.
Okay.
So that'll be fun. But it's time for this week's softball update. And our softball update is brought to you by Archangel Outfitters. They're the folks that give us our uniforms. Check them out, archangeloutfielders.net. A rain-soaked field led to the postponement of 3 of our afternoon games. We did get 2 of those games in, however. Chosen Ones beat Big League 2 11-9, a back-and-forth battle. A 6-run 5th inning for the Chosen Ones gave them the lead for good. Most of those runs in that inning coming on costly errors by Big League 2. An early home run by slugger Matt Liberator as well for the Chosen Ones. Jim Kottmeyer, 2 big home runs for Big League 2 in defeat. Chosen Ones now 2-0. A rain-shortened affair in the afternoon game between the Parma Peacocks and the Young Vitus Lions. We got an official game in. That's 4 full innings, and Parma sneaks past Vitus 4-3. An error-plagued first inning had Vitus trailing 3-0. They added a run in the third. Joe Vicario, a leadoff single. He came around to score after 2 errors. Vitus made a valiant comeback in the fourth. A big 2-run home run by Brett Yanasak in the fourth, but they fall short as the rain washes it out. Tough loss for Vitus. They fall to 0-2. The Peacocks even things up at 1-1. We'll have a makeup schedule for the games that were rained out soon. Most likely those will happen in August. But coming out this weekend, join us once again starting at 12:30 at St. John Bosco Field and see our cool uniforms provided by Archangel Outfitters. Thanks to them. Check them out, archangeloutfitters.net. They have all kinds of things, nice Catholic T-shirts, bracelets, rosaries, all those kinds of things. Archangel Outfitters is the sponsor of our softball update. All right, well, it didn't rain on our ballpark mess, but it rained on our softball weekend. So Logan Feldkamp and I were sitting in the car, and as this, he made a really good call. He said, we should probably just go in now and let this storm pass because it's coming. Mm-hmm. We're looking at the radar. And we said, yeah, okay. And so he told everybody, go under the pavilion. And as soon as we got in the car, the sky just opened. And we're sitting in the car waiting for this thing to pass. And then it finally passed. It was maybe 10, 15 minutes, right? And so we get out, and we said, all right, let's go see if the field's playable, because we were parked just behind the fields. There's a little shed there that was blocking our view of the field. So we walk out, we walk over, and it was just a big sopping mess. So I went, nope, everybody go home.
No drainage. Well, the other thing is, if you're not from Cleveland, we had a whole week that was 95 degrees and dry, and so it just sat on top of the soil and the grass and couldn't sink in. But as a good Midwesterner would say, we needed the rain. The grass needed it, so it was good that it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And then someone put in our little manager's group chat, maybe you should invest in a tarp. And I was like, yeah, you got 7 guys who could put it out there for us? And where are we going to store that?
Yeah.
And they said, well, maybe we should just get some more dirt. I was like, yeah, where are we going to store the dirt?
Yeah.
And then someone
This is a Catholic weekend softball league, so we do what we can.
And we do a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
we've invested a lot in this league.
Yeah.
But then somebody else said, could you guys stop trying to control the weather? And I was like, you get it.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, let's take a look at our readings for this coming week. What do you like?
The first reading arrested me. God did not make death, nor does he rejoice in the destruction of the living. I think that's so powerful. And then if you look at the between the Alleluia, it's called the Gospel Antiphon, our Savior Jesus Christ destroyed death. Like, one thing that's certain for every single person is that we will all die. The good news is God didn't intend for us to die. He intended for us to live forever. And the way that we do that is by participating in his death. So God became one of us, lived, loved, suffered, died, and then conquered death and rose from the dead, never to die again. And that's the whole promise of Christianity. So if you have ever been afraid of death or wondered about death or say, I hate to think about that, what's the meaning of life? Man, these readings are for you. And sometimes these are the most deep topics that anybody could talk about, and we skip over them. So I love it. I love it. Like, God did not make death. Whoa, I could think about that forever. How about you?
I like the gospel, and we actually talked about this at our staff meeting at St. Christopher this week. But one of the things that I really liked was the part where the woman who was afflicted with hemorrhages reaches out and touches just the tassel of his coat, and then Jesus feels the power go out of him. And he says, who touched me? And the disciples are going to say, you see how everybody's pressing in around you, and you say, who touched me? It's like the haughtiness of the disciples. But I just love the fact that she had such faith that even if she just touched the tassel of his coat, she felt that she would be healed. And,
she went for it.
Yeah. But how often do we have the faith that even just the slightest interaction that we have with Jesus could be enough to change us forever?
Or the slightest prayer, like, God, I don't believe, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of my heart right now. You give him a little. It goes back to that mustard seed that we were talking about a week before. But just to give him a little something to play with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you've wasted another half hour listening to us, and hopefully we won't have rain this Sunday. We'll be able to get in some more ballpark masses. So come on out, some more softball games rather. Ballpark mass is finished for the year.
Yeah.
And then, come out to St. John Bosco and check us out this weekend. And I'm Deacon Mike Hayes.
I'm Father Damien Ferentz.
You're award-winning Father Damien Ferentz. And this is Question of Faith. We'll see you all again next time.